All right, everybody, welcome to our weekly weather talk. You know, I think we're going to have to name this something. Maybe we'll have like a
weather chat,
weather talk.
Yeah.
Coffee
talk,
whatever you want to do it. We have been, so we get together every week, and we'd like to talk to you guys about, what's in the news, what's going on weather-wise, of course. And this week, we have all sorts of things. We're transitioning now into the fall, where we start talking about cold fronts all of a sudden. So it's not all going to be tropics talk for today. In fact, because of the later season now, we are in October. It never feels like it to me here in the South Florida, even though I grew up here. But hey, it's a little bit cooler. But importantly, Cindy's going to talk about, the daylight and how you probably have noticed is changing. At least I've noticed at night, not enough sun for my taste. At around 6:35, dusk already.
Me neither. I'm noticing that it's getting darker earlier, of course, and October is that transitional month. So people are wondering, so why are we losing daylight time at such a fast pace at this point? It's all about the Earth's axis and how far north you are latitudinally. So you can see that the sun's rays are now directly over Tropic of Capricorn.
Before we get to
December 21st.
The solstice there in December.
Right.
And things happen quickly, Cindy.
Yes, as a matter of fact, we are now losing our daylight time quite quickly. We're going to be down to 41 minutes less sunshine by the end of October, and you are going to notice that, but a lot less of a noticeable thing than it is up north. Those folks are they're going to lose up to 90 minutes of time in the Minneapolis area. So we have a much less noticeable
Absolutely.
change.
I mean, they start, and I lived in Boston for a little bit, and the sun starts setting there after 3:30, 4:11, and it's like, it feels like midnight. So at least we're not that bad, but 41 minutes because of the tilt of the Earth is quickly happening now. Just within 30 days, where normally, we don't even change, we don't even have a changing daylight time here during the summer. It's like a minute less in the evening and then a little minute less in the morning. But now things really get out of hand here as we talk about losing our daylight. This is, by the way, before we change the clock. So this is, nothing to do with that. That is the brutal part, I think, in November when we just, go darker even an hour. So here we are.
Every day we lose about a minute and 24 seconds per day. So it starts off kind of, okay, but even later in the evening, you start to notice more of a...
This is when we're losing the most per day right now. So
no, and it's I notice it. No question about it. Shortest days coming up.
7 p.m. October 8th. That would be the last time we have a sunset at 7 p.m. And then the earliest sunset that we ever see here in the Miami area is 5:29. Right. That's November 22nd to December 8th. And how long does that last? We got one more.
This should be 6:29 if they did the clocks the way I want them to be done. Now, this is because of daylight savings time ending, or daylight saving. I always put the S in there, but so an hour is all of a sudden within a minute you go 1:59 a.m. to 2, and that's coming up the first weekend in November, I believe, is when we
right after Halloween.
So after Halloween, at least on Halloween day, we can get out trick or treat, and it's still not too bad at all. All right, let's check in. What else do we got here? We've got a sun and the Earth
and the space station. Now, certain times during the year you can see it. Now it doesn't look like that.
No,
unless you have a telescope.
It's about 250 miles up, 250 miles. It's moving about 17,500 miles an hour, and it just looks like. It's one of the brightest things in the sky, aside from the sun and the moon. It'll just look like a plane moving along by, but there's no blinking lights on the wings. And at certain times of the year, everything lines up. The sun is coming off the panels, and they reflect right back to Earth. Now is one of those times. Spot the station. Just go search that, and you can type in Miami, and you'll have times when you could see. Right overhead, it'll tell you where to look, what time to look, but
moves pretty quickly too.
It does.
If you're looking up, it's that dot, and so it looks like a plane at times. But if you know what you're looking at with one of the apps, it's kind of neat.
Say, hey, that's way up there. That's the space station, so you can see it. Give it a wave. It'll be up there a few nights here this week.
Will they see us if we?
They may,
depending on the night.
They won't see us.
Well, that's true, yeah.
Us as a whole.
They see us. They see a lot of things. We've been watching spectacular images, of course, during the tropical season. I want to talk about this surprise smoke that we had through, the early part of the day on Tuesday. And this was something here that just a perfect setup. The wildfires in Canada are not new, but everyone's wondering. I was asked, are there issues in the Everglades? Is there fire there? Because you would think, the smoke from nearby fires. You wouldn't think all the way into eastern Canada. High pressure anchored across across the eastern part of the U.S., and the flow around high pressure in the northern hemisphere is clockwise. So you put that high there, the fire's to the east, and the smoke is just going to follow the wind pattern here, and it just brought the smoke directly over our neighborhoods. And yesterday was not a good day. In fact, the air quality was the highest as far as the numbers, the worst we've had in quite some time, and it was the worst air quality in South Florida than across the rest of the U.S. So that was something. Thankfully, a bit of a wind shift. The smoke has dissipated, and now we're looking at much better conditions across South Florida.
Not unusual to get smoke here, but with the northeast wind,
right,
it was a little unusual.
And the northeast wind came behind the front that brought us all the dry air that now we're enjoying here with, not much in the way of showers and thunderstorms. Last week on our talk, we were talking about just the incredible amounts of rain that we've received here, and now we're catching a huge break. We were surprised to find out yesterday Fort Lauderdale, almost 50 inches above normal for this time of year, twice as much rainfall in 1 year so far. That was, of course, in part with the April situation. We are tracking the tropics. We are in the season still. Remember, October is still a very busy month. We're not seeing anything that is threatening South Florida right now, but we always said keep an eye out. Remember, we had Hurricane Nicole in November last year. So the season's not over till it's over. The atmosphere will do what it wants to do, and this year has been kind of all over the place. I must say. There we are today, so we'll continue that ramping down, and I think once we get past Halloween and into mid-November, we can start breathing easy if we don't get anything additional. We don't see Sean, at least for the next 7 days, from the National Hurricane Center, but there are a lot of spinning icons, guys, here.
Yeah, working down the list pretty well here. So
yeah, so Sean, Tammy, Vince, Whitney. Will we get to a Whitney?
This time of the year, we look for the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean.
Right.
That's the spot that you have to watch. They're very sneaky when they come up from those areas.
Most tropical systems that have hit South Florida have happened in the month of October. So hopefully this year will be different, and we'll get spared from any of those names that left or an additional list. Philippe, still there. And this is interesting because and we've been showing you the pictures from the hurricane hunters that were out there last night. Incredible pictures of just them flying in and seeing all the lightning. It was a nighttime flight, but it doesn't look like much, and it really isn't as far as organization, but it has been dumping just, a ton of rainfall across the northern Antilles. I've been seeing some, views of some significant flooding up there towards Barbuda, where we had that tropical storm warning. Puerto Rico getting involved in there now. So even though the center is displaced, sometimes, tropical storms, even though they're disorganized, can wreak havoc, and that's what's been happening in the islands. But nicely quiet across the rest of the basin here, so we're not expecting much in the way of any additional activity for now. We like to see, as Cindy pointed out, the Caribbean. Notice, see how the clouds move from from north to south. There, a lot of wind shear there. That has been a theme so far this year because of
right up.
El Nino.
El Nino is helping us out,
Yeah,
actually.
It has materialized there because typically we get a lot more action in the Caribbean, which is where we look for this time of year, and the Gulf of Mexico. But so far, let these troughs and fronts come in, and that is great for us because they disrupt tropical systems. So Philippe is it, and as it continues up to the north. All right, so your turn. So we had a question about, the cold air that sometimes we'll feel, not from cold fronts, from actual thunderstorms. Those are the gust fronts, or as we call them all the time. And sometimes the name doesn't really make sense, but we call them outflow boundaries or gust fronts. It's the same thing, Claudia from Kendall. Thanks for asking that. And so let's just kind of do a little setup here, as we typically would see, on Next Radar Network. These, thunderstorms, as they develop, say along the sea breeze or just, during the heating of the day, once they get going, the outflow from the storm is up above, and the air is going to be much colder up in the thunderstorm head. And so as that air travels down to the surface, it travels in all sorts of different directions. But as that happens, it's literally transporting the cold air from the cloud, which is why you feel, that cool temperature all of a sudden. And then, Dave and Cindy, we turn. So I've drawn the little mini cold fronts because that's kind of how the boundaries set up and when they interact with each other.
One thing that you might hear often is everything likes to turn over. So you get the heat at the surface, goes up, the cold air aloft with the rain comes down, and then things get a little calmer for a while.
Right. And then this is why, and we talk about the heating of the day and how we need the heat, and we do to make thunderstorms typically. But once these boundaries get going, we've been here till 11:30 midnight, and the storms just continue because these boundaries continue to clash with each other. The air can't go down. What does it do? It goes up, and if it happens in an area where it hasn't rained out, where the atmosphere hasn't turned over, we can get additional air rising and more thunderstorms going. So that's why it's kind of a domino effect sometimes, and the cool air you feel is from up above. I always wondered that when I was in school, which is part of, everyone has a story. Mine was, in elementary school, I'd go in Miami, clear skies, blue skies. For lunch, all of a sudden these cauliflower thunderstorms or clouds would develop. I'm wondering, well, who's making these? Where are these coming from? And then in the afternoon, you would feel those cool gusts coming from the storms, and all of a sudden everything just exploded. So I got into it because I wanted to explain that. So
the situation is really unique to Florida.
Very unique.
Come down here from the north. What is this with the sea breezes and these boundaries? You just don't see that anywhere else. It's very much a Florida thing.
It is a Florida thing, and you don't need actual fronts or lows or anything organized. You get enough heat and enough moisture, and then the sea breezes act as that lifting mechanism, we call it. We got to get the the moisture transported up, or you just end up with fog. So thank you for that question. Keep them coming. Check in with us on our social media accounts, and we'll be happy to answer your question. That is it for our weather talk this week. Have a great week, and we'll see you back here next time.